The stars had always called to humanity. For thousands of years, people looked up at the night sky and dreamed of what might be out there. They built telescopes. They sent rockets into space. They walked on the moon. And finally, in the year 2147, they built ships that could travel between stars. But when humanity reached the stars, they found that someone else was already there. The Galactic Confederation was old. It had existed for over 50,000 years. Dozens of species worked together under its rule. The Velthari were beings made of living crystal, beautiful and proud. The Kron were reptilian warriors with scales like armor and teeth like knives. The Irani were gentle creatures with soft bodies and kind eyes. And there were many others, each with their own worlds and their own ways. When these ancient species first saw humanity, they laughed. Human ships were small and slow. Human weapons were weak. Human technology was primitive compared to what the Confederation had built over thousands of years. The aliens looked at Earth and saw a tiny blue world filled with creatures who had only just learned to leave their own planet. Let them join, the Velthari Archon said at the Great Council meeting. They are harmless. Like pets, the other species agreed. Humanity was given a small seat at the edge of the council chamber. They were allowed to trade, but only for scraps. They were allowed to build colonies, but only on worlds nobody else wanted. They were treated like children who had wandered into a room full of adults. Admiral Nathan Cole was a young officer in those early days. He remembered standing on the bridge of his small patrol ship, watching a Kron battle cruiser pass by. The alien vessel was 100 times larger than his own. Its weapons could have destroyed his ship with a single shot. The Kron captain did not even bother to respond to his greeting. That was how things were for humanity. They were ignored. They were dismissed. They were nothing. Then came the massacre. The human colony on Kepler 442b was a peaceful place. 60,000 people lived there, farming the rich soil and building homes under an orange sky. They had families. They had dreams. They had done nothing wrong. The Kron Empire wanted that world. They said it was too close to their territory. They said humans had no right to be there. And one terrible morning, a Kron fleet appeared in orbit and opened fire. The colonists had no warships to defend them. They had no weapons that could stop the attack. They could only run and hide as fire rained down from the sky. The Kron were thorough. They destroyed every building. They killed every person they could find. When they were finished, nothing remained but ashes and bones. 60,000 human beings died that day. Men, women, and children. Farmers and teachers and doctors. All of them gone in a matter of hours. Ambassador Victoria Cross stood before the Galactic Confederation and demanded justice. Her voice shook with grief and anger as she described what the Kron had done. She showed images of the destruction. She read the names of the dead. The council listened politely. Then they did nothing. The Kron claimed the colony was illegal, the Velthari representative said with a shrug of his crystal shoulders. It is a border dispute. These things happen. 60,000 people are dead, Cross said. Children are dead. Perhaps humanity should be more careful about where they build their settlements. The Kron ambassador replied with a cold smile. Consider this a lesson. Cross returned to Earth with empty hands and a broken heart. But she also carried something else. She carried a quiet determination that would change everything. That night, in a secret room deep beneath the mountains of Switzerland, the leaders of humanity gathered. President Jonathan Reeves sat at the head of the table. Around him were admirals and generals, scientists and engineers, the best minds that Earth had to offer. We cannot fight them, Admiral Cole said. Not now. Their ships are too powerful. Their technology is too advanced. If we go to war, we will be destroyed. Then what do we do? Someone asked. Accept this? Let them kill our people whenever they want? A woman at the far end of the table stood up. Her name was Claire Morgan, and she was the most brilliant engineer humanity had ever produced. Her eyes were cold and hard, like steel that had been tempered in fire. "We do what humanity has always done," she said. "We adapt. We learn. We build. And we wait." She pressed a button, and a holographic image appeared above the table. It showed something that made everyone in the room fall silent. It was a ship, but unlike any ship ever designed. It was massive beyond imagination, larger than some moons, larger than some planets. Its surface bristled with weapons. Its engines were like small suns. "They think we are weak," Morgan said. "They think we are primitive. So we let them keep thinking that. We smile and bow and play the part of the harmless little species they believe us to be. And in secret, we build. We build things they cannot imagine. We build power they will never expect." "How long?" President Reeves asked. 200 years, Morgan replied. "Maybe more. We will need to develop new technologies, new materials, new energy sources. We will need to hide our work from every sensor and spy in the galaxy. It will take generations." "Generations," Cole repeated softly. "Most of us in this room will never see it finished." "No," Morgan agreed. "But our children will. Our grandchildren will. And when the time comes, they will show the galaxy what humanity can really do." The project was given a name, Operation Colossus. Over the decades that followed, humanity worked in secret. They built hidden shipyards in the empty spaces between stars, far from any trade route or patrol. They mined asteroids and moons for materials, always careful to make it look like ordinary resource gathering. They developed technologies in underground laboratories, never revealing their true capabilities to their alien neighbors. On the surface, nothing changed. Humans remained the quiet, harmless species that everyone ignored. They traded their simple goods. They lived on their unwanted worlds. They smiled politely when the Krong laughed at them. They bowed their heads when the Volturi looked down on them. But in the darkness between galaxies, something was growing. Something massive. Something terrifying. The first ship was called the Goliath. When Commander Daniel Harris watched its fusion core ignite for the first time, tears rolled down his cheeks. The vessel was 12,000 kilometers wide. It was larger than Earth itself. Its weapons could crack a world in half. "How many are we building?" His second-in-command, Lieutenant Samantha Burke, asked as she stared at the impossible sight before her. Harris wiped his eyes and smiled. 7. The galaxy had no idea what was coming, and humanity intended to keep it that way, for now. 230 years passed like a slow river flowing toward the sea. Generations lived and died. Children became parents, and parents became grandparents. The people who had started Operation Colossus grew old and passed away, but they passed their secrets to those who came after them. The work never stopped. The building never ended. And the hatred that burned in humanity's heart never faded. Admiral Nathan Cole was an old man now. His hair had turned white, and his face was lined with wrinkles. But his eyes were still sharp, and his mind was still clear. He had given his entire life to the project, and now he commanded the fleet that would change everything. The 7 planet-sized warships floated in the darkness between galaxies, hidden from every sensor in known space. The Goliath, the Leviathan, the Titan, the Behemoth, the Sovereign, the Dreadnought, the Olympus. Each one was a masterpiece of engineering, a weapon beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy entire star systems, and still, humanity waited. "The ships are ready," Commander Catherine Wells reported as she stood beside Cole on the bridge of the Goliath. All systems are operational. The crews are trained. We could move today if you gave the order. Cole stared at the holographic display showing the 7 vessels. His vessels. His legacy. Not yet, he said quietly. We need the right moment. When we reveal ourselves, the galaxy must understand that this is not aggression. This is justice. Meanwhile, in the heart of the Kron Empire, High Counselor Jethrak sat on his throne and dreamed of conquest. Jethrak was old even by Kron standards. He had ruled his empire for over a century, and in that time, he had expanded its borders by a dozen star systems. He had crushed rebellions and destroyed enemies. He had ordered the deaths of millions, and he had never lost a moment of sleep over any of it. He hated humans most of all. There was something about them that made his scales itch with disgust. They were soft and weak, with their pink skin and their strange emotions. They smiled too much. They talked about things like peace and cooperation. They did not understand that the universe belonged to the strong, and the strong took what they wanted. I want them gone, Zethric said to his war council. Not tomorrow. Not next year. Now. His advisors exchanged nervous glances. High Counselor, one of them said carefully, the humans have done nothing to provoke us recently. If we attack them without reason, the Confederation might object. Zethrak laughed, a harsh sound like rocks grinding together. The Confederation is weak. They talk and debate while we act. And even if they objected, what would they do? The Velthari are too proud to fight. The Irani are too gentle. There is no one who would stand against us for the sake of these pathetic creatures. He was right, and everyone in the room knew it. The order went out that same day. Kron warships began hunting for human vessels in the border regions. They did not need much of an excuse. A ship slightly off course. A cargo that might be suspicious. Any reason would do. The transport convoy called Morning Star never had a chance. 12 ships were carrying supplies to a distant human colony. Food, medicine, building materials. 3,000 crew members worked aboard them, ordinary people doing ordinary jobs. They had no weapons. They had no reason to expect danger. The Kron fleet appeared out of nowhere. 50 warships against 12 transports. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted less than 10 minutes. Captain Ryan Moore was on the bridge of the lead transport when the first shots hit. He watched in horror as the ships around him exploded one by one, their hulls torn apart by Kron weapons. He tried to call for help, but the communication systems were dead. He tried to surrender, but the Kron were not interested in prisoners. The last thing he saw was the face of a Kron captain on his view screen, smiling as his ship fired the final shot. 3,000 people died in the cold silence of space. And this time, the Kron made sure everyone knew about it. They broadcast the footage across every communication channel in the sector. They showed the burning ships. They showed the bodies floating in the vacuum. They showed Zethrak himself, speaking to the camera with contempt dripping from every word. Let this be a warning to all humans, he said. You do not belong among the stars. You are insects crawling in the dirt. Stay on your little worlds, or we will crush you like the vermin you are. On Earth, people watched the broadcast in stunned silence. Then the silence turned to grief, and the grief turned to rage. Ambassador Victoria Cross was much older now, but she still served humanity as she always had. She stood before the Galactic Confederation one more time, her voice steady despite the fire burning in her chest. We demand justice, she said. The Kron have murdered our people. Again, we demand that they be held accountable. The Velthari representative, a tall being called Arkan Nassara, tilted her crystalline head. And what will you do if we refuse, little human? Send your tiny fleet against the Kron armada? Laughter filled the chamber. The Kron ambassador grinned with all of his teeth. Even the neutral species seemed amused by the idea of humanity threatening anyone. Cross did not smile. She did not argue. She simply reached into her pocket and pulled out a small communication device. "Admiral Cole," she said calmly. "Authorization code Omega-7. It is time." Millions of light years away, aboard the Goliath, Admiral Cole received the message. He had waited his entire life for these words. He had sacrificed everything for this moment: friends, family, any chance at a normal life. All of it given to Operation Colossus. "All ships," he said, his voice carrying across the fleet-wide channel, "begin approach to known space. Maximum speed." 7 planet-sized warships powered up their engines. The darkness around them blazed with light as drives the size of continents came to life. They began to move, slowly at first, then faster and faster, heading toward a galaxy that had no idea what was coming. Back on Earth, President Marcus Webb recorded a message. It would be broadcast at the exact moment the fleet arrived. He sat in a simple room, looking directly at the camera, and spoke with quiet strength. "For 300 years, we endured your contempt. We smiled while you laughed at us. We buried our dead while you looked away. You thought our silence was weakness. You thought our patience was fear. You were wrong. We are humanity, and we are done hiding." In the council chamber, Ambassador Cross watched the confusion on the faces of the alien delegates. They did not understand yet. They could not imagine what was happening, but they would learn soon enough. The entire galaxy would learn. The Kron border station Vexter was a massive structure floating in the emptiness between star systems. It watched over a region of space larger than most empires, scanning for any sign of threat or intrusion. For 300 years, it had never detected anything that worried its commanders. Human ships sometimes passed through the area, small and slow and harmless. They were not worth noticing. Sensor Officer Crixel was bored. He had been staring at screens for hours, watching the same empty space he watched every day. Nothing ever happened here. Nothing ever changed. He was thinking about what he would eat for dinner when his console made a sound he had never heard before. A warning alarm. Something was coming. Crixel leaned forward and looked at his display. At first, he thought there must be a mistake. The sensors were showing 7 objects approaching from deep space, but the size readings made no sense. Each object was registering as larger than most moons. That was impossible. Nothing that big could move through space. He ran a diagnostic check. The equipment was working perfectly. He checked again. The readings did not change. "Commander," Crixel said, his voice shaking slightly, "you need to see this." Commander Vrexenar walked over to the sensor station with annoyance on his face. He was an old soldier who had served the Kron Empire for decades, and he did not like being disturbed by junior officers. But when he saw the display, his expression changed. His scales went pale. "Contact Fleet Command," he ordered. "Tell them something is coming. Something big." The message reached the Kron home world within minutes. From there, it spread to every corner of the Empire. Then it reached the Galactic Confederation. Then it reached everyone else. The galaxy held its breath. Admiral Nathan Cole stood on the bridge of the Goliath and watched the stars grow closer. After so many years of waiting, so many decades of preparation, the moment had finally arrived. He felt a strange mix of emotions. Pride in what humanity had built. Sadness for all the people who had not lived to see this day. And beneath it all, a cold satisfaction that justice was finally coming. "We are entering sensor range of the Kron border stations," Commander Catherine Wells reported from her position at the tactical display. "They have detected us." "Good," Cole said. "Open a channel. Broadcast on all frequencies, in every language known to the Confederation. Let everyone hear this. The communication officer nodded and made the necessary adjustments. A green light appeared, indicating that the channel was open and the message was being transmitted across the galaxy. Cole took a deep breath. He had rehearsed these words 1,000 times in his mind, but now that the moment was here, they felt inadequate. How could words express what humanity had endured? How could any speech convey the meaning of this moment? He spoke anyway. "This is Admiral Nathan Cole of the United Human Fleet. I am addressing every species in the Galactic Confederation. Every empire and kingdom and republic that has ever looked at humanity and seen nothing but a weak and primitive species. For 3 centuries, you have treated us as lesser beings. You have destroyed our colonies. You have murdered our people. You have denied us justice and laughed at our suffering. That era is over now." He paused, letting the words sink in across the galaxy. "The 7 vessels approaching known space represent humanity's answer to your cruelty. Each one is larger than your largest ships. Each one carries weapons beyond anything you have ever imagined. We do not seek war. We do not wish to conquer or dominate. But we will never again be victims. Any species that attacks human citizens or territories will face consequences beyond imagination. This is not a threat. This is a promise." The channel closed. The message had been sent. Now the galaxy would see what humanity had built. On the Velthri homeworld, Archon Desara stood in her council chamber and stared at the sensor data with growing horror. Her crystalline body flickered with colors that showed her fear and confusion. The human vessels were real. They were massive, and they were more powerful than anything the Confederation had ever created. How did they do this? She asked the room. How did they build these things without us knowing? Her young advisor, Velith, pulled up 300 years of intelligence reports on humanity. Mining operations that had been dismissed as ordinary resource gathering. Construction projects that had been assumed to be habitat expansions. Technological research that had been written off as primitive experimentation. It was all there, hidden in plain sight. "They let us see what we expected to see," Velith said quietly. "We never looked deeper because we never thought they were worth watching. They used our arrogance against us." Desara stared at the screen for a long moment. Then she laughed, a strange sound like crystal chimes in a cold wind. "We called them primitive. We called them harmless. And now they have built weapons that could destroy us all." Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. The Urani watched the approaching fleet with fear and wonder. The Thesan traders calculated the economic implications and found no good answers. Smaller species whispered to each other about what this meant for the balance of power. Everyone was afraid. Everyone except Dekron. High Counselor Zethrak refused to believe what his officers told him. "Illusions," he said with contempt. "Human tricks and projections. They are trying to frighten us with holograms and sensor ghosts. Our fleet will destroy them." "High Counselor," his senior admiral said carefully, "the readings suggest these vessels are real. Their power signatures indicate weapons capabilities that we cannot match. Perhaps we should consider." "I do not pay you to be a coward," Zethrak snapped. "Assemble the armada. Every ship we have. We will meet these humans and show them what Kron's strength truly means." The order went out, and the mightiest fleet the Kron Empire had ever assembled began to gather. 800 warships, carrying millions of soldiers, armed with weapons that had conquered dozens of worlds. It was a force that had never been defeated in battle. On the Goliath, Admiral Cole watched the Kron ships forming up. He felt no fear. He felt no anger. He felt only a calm certainty about what was going to happen next. "They are coming to fight us," Commander Wells said. 800 ships. Everything they have. Cole nodded slowly. "They still do not understand. They have spent 300 years believing they are the strongest. that we are nothing. They cannot accept that the universe has changed. Should we try to negotiate? Give them a chance to surrender? Cole thought about the colony on Kepler 442b. He thought about the Morning Star convoy. He thought about all the human lives lost because the galaxy did not care. We will give them one chance, he said. One warning. But I do not think they will listen. He was right. They would not dot, and so the stage was set for the battle that would change everything. The Kron Armada gathered near the Zirith Nebula, a cloud of glowing gas that stretched across light years of space. 800 warships arranged themselves in perfect battle formation, their weapons charged and ready. Each vessel was a killing machine, built for conquest and destruction. Together, they represented the greatest military force the Kron Empire had ever assembled. High Counselor Zethrak watched from his flagship, the Dominator. He stood on the command bridge with his arms crossed and his chest puffed out with pride. This was the moment he had been waiting for. He would crush these pathetic humans and their fake superweapons. He would show the entire galaxy that the Kron were still the strongest. He would be remembered forever as the leader who put humanity in its place. The human vessels are approaching, his sensor officer reported. Distance, 2 million kilometers and closing. Zethrik smiled. 2 million kilometers was extreme range for most weapons, but Kron ships could hit targets at that distance. Prepare to fire on my command. All ships. Maximum power. Across the Gulf of Space, Admiral Cole watched the Kron fleet from the bridge of the Goliath. The enemy ships looked like toys compared to his vessel. They were arranged neatly, confidently, as if they expected an easy victory. They had no idea what they were about to face. Open a channel to the Kron flagship, Cole ordered. A moment later, the face of Zethrak appeared on the main view screen. The Kron leader's eyes burned with hatred and contempt. So you have come to surrender, he said. Wise choice. Perhaps I will only destroy half of your fleet as punishment. High Counselor, Cole said calmly. I am giving you one opportunity to withdraw. Turn your ships around and return to Kron space. If you attack us, you will be destroyed. Zethraft? It was an ugly sound, like grinding metal. You threaten me? You, a human. I have conquered worlds. I have killed millions. And you think you can frighten me with your oversized toys? This is not a threat, Cole replied. This is a fact. Your weapons cannot hurt us. Your ships cannot escape us. If you choose to fight, none of your vessels will survive. Enough talk, Zethrak snarled. All ships, open fire. 800 Kron warships unleashed their weapons at once. Missiles streaked through space. Energy beams cut through the void. Thousands of projectiles hurtled toward the Goliath, in a storm of destruction that would have annihilated any normal fleet. The attacks hit the Goliath's shields and vanished. Commander Lucas Grant, weapons officer aboard the human vessel, watched his display with satisfaction. Shield integrity at 100%, he reported. No damage. No fluctuation. Their weapons are completely ineffective. Admiral Cole nodded. He had expected this, but it was still good to see. 3 centuries of secret research had produced energy shields that the galaxy could not penetrate. The Kron might as well have been throwing stones at a mountain. Return fire, Cole said quietly. Target their weapon systems only. Disable, do not destroy. The Goliath's primary batteries opened fire. Graviton beams, invisible to the naked eye but devastating in their power, lanced out across space. Each beam hit a Kron ship with perfect precision, cutting through armor like a knife through paper. Weapons arrays exploded. Engine sections went dark. Shields collapsed. The Kron did not understand what was happening. Their sensors showed energy readings that made no sense. Their ships were being taken apart piece by piece by weapons they could not see or defend against. Panic spread through the fleet like a disease. "What is happening?" Zethrak demanded. "Why are our ships failing?" No one could answer him. There was no answer that made sense. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, 400 Kron ships drifted helplessly in space, their weapons and engines destroyed, but their crews still alive. The remaining 400 had retreated, fleeing at maximum speed in all directions. They did not stop to rescue their comrades. They did not try to regroup. They simply ran, driven by terror they had never felt before. Lieutenant Megan Torres looked up from her sensor station with wide eyes. "The surviving ships are scattering. They are in complete disarray. No organized retreat. Just panic." Cole felt no joy at the victory. He had known it would end this way. A battle was not what he wanted. Justice was what he wanted. "Target the Dominator," he ordered. "Disable her completely. I want Zethrak alive and unable to escape." The Goliath's precision weapons cut through the Kron flagship like a surgeon's scalpel. Every gun was destroyed. Every engine was silenced. Every escape pod was disabled. The mighty Dominator became nothing more than a metal coffin floating in the void. Human boarding craft launched from the Goliath and crossed the distance in minutes. Marines in powered armor cut through the Dominator's hull and fought their way to the bridge. The Kron guards tried to resist, but they were outmatched by human weapons and training. Within an hour, the ship was secured. Zethrak was dragged before Admiral Cole in the Goliath's detention center. The Kron leader's scales had gone pale, and his eyes were wild with confusion and fear. He did not look like a conqueror anymore. He looked like a frightened animal caught in a trap. "This is impossible," he whispered. "How? How did you do this?" Cole looked at the creature who had ordered the deaths of so many humans. He felt anger, yes, but also something like pity. Zethrak had spent his entire life believing that strength was all that mattered. He had never imagined that the species he despised could become stronger than him. "We worked for 300 years, Cole said. "We sacrificed everything. We let you laugh at us and mock us and kill our people, and we used that time to build something you could not imagine. You thought our patience was weakness. It was our greatest weapon. The Confederation will not accept this," Zethrak said desperately. "The other species will unite against you. You cannot fight the entire galaxy." "We do not intend to fight anyone who does not attack us first," Cole replied. "We built these ships for defense, not conquest. But you and your empire will face justice. The colonists you murdered on Kepler 442b, the crews of the Morning Star convoy, all the humans who died because of your hatred. You will answer for every death." Zethrak's face twisted with rage and fear. "I am the High Counselor of the Kron Empire." "You cannot." "I can," Cole said simply. "And I will." As Zethrak was led away to a cell, Commander Samantha Burke approached the Admiral. She had served with him for decades, and she could see the weariness in his eyes. "The Confederation is requesting an emergency summit," she said. "Every species wants to talk to us. They are afraid." Cole nodded slowly. "Let them be afraid for a while. Fear will teach them respect. And respect is the first step toward peace." He looked out at the stars, thinking about all the people who had worked their entire lives for this moment. Claire Morgan, who had designed the first plans. Daniel Harris, who had built the first ship. All the scientists and engineers and workers who had given everything so that their children might live in a galaxy where humans were not prey. "We have won this battle," he said quietly. "But the real work is just beginning." The Galactic Confederation Summit Chamber had never been so quiet. For 50,000 years, the great circular room had been filled with the voices of powerful species, debating and arguing and making. decisions that affected trillions of lives. The Velthari had always spoken with pride and arrogance. The Kron had always spoken with threats and aggression. The smaller species had always listened and obeyed, too weak to challenge the old powers. But today, everything was different. Ambassador Victoria Cross walked into the chamber with her head held high. She was old now, her hair white and her face lined with age, but her eyes were sharp and her step was steady. Behind her walked a small group of human diplomats, each one wearing the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic service. A new seat had been placed at the table, not at the edge of the room where humans had sat for 3 centuries, but in the center, among the great powers. Cross took her seat and looked around at the faces staring at her. She saw fear in their eyes. Fear and respect. Archo and the Velthari spoke first. Her crystalline body flickered with nervous colors as she tried to find the right words. Humanity has demonstrated capabilities that we did not anticipate. We wish to understand your intentions. Cross folded her hands on the table and met the Archon's gaze without flinching. Our intentions are simple. We want peace. We want fair trade. We want our colonies and our citizens to be safe. We have no desire to conquer or dominate anyone. We never wanted power for its own sake. We only wanted to stop being victims. And the Kron? Asked the representative of the Orani, a gentle creature with large dark eyes. The Kron Empire will face justice for their crimes, Cross replied. Not just against humanity, but against all the species they have oppressed over the centuries. Their military will be reduced to defensive levels only. Their leaders will stand trial for the atrocities they have committed. Their victims will receive compensation and protection. A murmur ran through the chamber. Many of the smaller species had suffered under Kron aggression, but had been too afraid to speak out. Now they looked at each other with hope dawning in their eyes. The Velthari representative leaned forward. And one of us? What do you demand from the Confederation? Cross smiled slightly. It was not a cruel smile, but it carried a weight of memory behind it. We demand nothing. We are offering something instead. A new kind of alliance, based on equality rather than hierarchy. Partnership instead of dominance. Cooperation instead of exploitation. Humanity does not want to rule the galaxy. We want to build something better alongside our fellow species. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the Orani representative raised her hand slowly. We failed you, she said, her voice soft with shame. When the Kron attacked your colonies, we said nothing. When they murdered your people, we looked away. We were afraid, and our fear made us complicit in their cruelty. I am sorry. Cross nodded. Fear is powerful. We understand. But the galaxy does not have to run on fear anymore. Humanity is strong enough now to protect ourselves and to help protect others. That is what we intend to do. One by one, the other species began to speak. Some apologized for their past treatment of humanity. Some asked questions about trade and diplomacy. Some simply expressed relief that the new human power did not seek revenge or conquest. The conversation went on for hours, and by the end, the shape of a new galactic order was beginning to form far above the summit. In orbit around a distant human world, Admiral Nathan Cole watched the proceedings through a live transmission. He was tired. The battle with the Kron and the days that followed had drained him in ways he had not expected. But he was also satisfied. The work of generations was finally bearing fruit. Director Claire Morgan appeared beside him via holographic link. She was over 200 years old now, kept alive by the most advanced medical technology humanity had developed. Her body was frail, but her mind was as sharp as ever. Think they will accept? She asked, nodding toward the image of the summit. Cole considered the question. Some of them actually want to. They are tired of the old way too. The Confederation was built on fear and power, but that foundation was always unstable. What we are offering is something more lasting. And those who do not want to accept, they will learn, Cole said simply. Not through conquest, through example. When they see human ships defending the weak instead of exploiting them, when they see human trade making everyone richer instead of just ourselves, when they see human justice applied fairly to all species, including our own, they will understand what we are building. Morgan smiled, and for a moment, she looked like the young woman who had first proposed Operation Colossus all those years ago. I wish the others could see this. Jonathan Reeves, Daniel Harris, all the people who gave everything and never lived to see the result. They knew, Cole said. They knew they were building something for future generations. That is what made their sacrifice meaningful. On Earth, President Marcus Webb stood before a crowd of millions, unveiling a monument to the 60,000 colonists who had died on Kepler 442b. Their names were carved into a wall of polished black stone that stretched for kilometers, a permanent reminder of the tragedy that had started everything. We built those ships in their memory, Webb said, his voice carrying across the silent crowd. Not for revenge, but to ensure that no human, no being anywhere in the galaxy, would ever be treated as disposable again. Our strength is not in our weapons. It is in our refusal to accept cruelty as inevitable. It is in our belief that the universe can be better than it has been. He paused and looked up at the sky, where the Goliath was visible as a bright point of light moving slowly among the stars. For 300 years, we worked in secret. We endured mockery and contempt. We buried our dead and kept building. And now the galaxy knows what humanity can do. But power without purpose is meaningless. Our purpose is not domination. Our purpose is peace, justice, protection for the weak, opportunity for all. The crowd erupted in applause that lasted for nearly an hour. People wept and embraced each other. The long nightmare was over. Humanity had risen from the position of galactic prey to become something the universe had never seen before, a superpower that chose to use its strength for the benefit of all. In the years that followed, the galaxy was transformed. The Crown leadership faced trial and punishment for their crimes. Oppressed species found their voices and claimed their rights. Trade routes opened that had been closed for centuries. And humanity, once dismissed as insignificant and primitive, became the architects of a new galactic order built on principles that many had thought impossible. Admiral Cole retired to a small house by the sea on Earth. He spent his final years watching the waves and thinking about all the people who had made this moment possible. When he died peacefully in his sleep, he was remembered not as a conqueror, but as a guardian. The 7 great ships still patrolled the space between stars, a reminder of what humanity had achieved. They were rarely needed now. Peace had taken root in places where only fear had grown before. Species that had been enemies for millennia were learning to work together. The galaxy had not been ready for humanity, but humanity had been ready for the galaxy, and that had made all the difference.